Welcome to the Health Headliner podcast by Tudu Digital. Our content is informational only and not medical advice. Please consult your provider. Now, let's dive into today's headlines.
I want you to picture something for a moment. Something that sounds, well, a little bit unlikely. We're going to talk about some really painful human diseases, conditions that have been around for millennia. I mean, think about something like gout, that crippling inflammation that just rips through your joints.
Or kidney stones.
Yeah.
I think anyone who's had them or knows someone who has will tell you it's one of the most painful things a person can go through.
Exactly. And these aren't some rare, obscure problems.
Not at all. They're major public health issues, and they're tied directly to our own metabolism. And if you'd asked a top biochemist, say, 10 years ago where the solution was...
It'd probably point to a new synthetic drug, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe gene therapy.
Something high-tech, for sure. Better kidney function, a new compound.
But what if I told you that the secret, a really game-changing secret to solving these problems, wasn't in some high-tech lab? That it was in something, well, something frankly a little gross.
Yep. Go on.
We're talking about the bathroom habits of snakes and lizards.
It really does sound like the setup for a joke, but it's not. The reality is that the evolutionary trick these animals mastered gives us this breathtaking blueprint for completely new medical treatments.
Yeah.
They handle the very same compound that makes us so miserable, uric acid, with flawless efficiency.
So that's our mission today. We're going to take a deep dive into some pretty groundbreaking new research. And this isn't just a quirky biology fact. This is hard chemistry. We're unpacking a scientific paper from the Journal of the American Chemical Society, and we're also pulling in some insights from recent health news about it. We're going to look literally at the solid urine of reptiles.
And we need to understand the specifics, the chemistry, the structure that these animals use to survive, and how that could fundamentally change the way we treat human diseases caused by this exact same compound.
It's a fascinating conflict when you think about it.
It really is. The core of it is scientifically profound. For us, high levels of uric acid, a condition called hyperuricemia, is a huge health problem. Modern medicine is all about getting rid of it, lowering the levels.
But for a python?
For a python or a lizard, handling massive amounts of uric acid isn't a bug, it's a feature. It's a brilliant survival strategy. So we have to figure out why they evolved it and then break down the chemistry that makes it work so safely.
Okay, so let's start there. With that first part of the equation, the evolutionary necessity. We have to start with the fundamental biology. How do we get rid of the chemical junk left over from a meal?
Right. And if you look at basic physiology, this is one of the biggest points where mammals, like us, split off from reptiles and birds. The whole strategy for getting rid of nitrogen waste.
And it's not a random difference, is it?
Not at all. It's an evolutionary path that's based almost entirely on one thing: saving water. So, nitrogenous waste. It's the toxic byproduct you get when you metabolize proteins. You eat a steak, your body breaks it down, and you're left with this excess nitrogen.
Which starts out as ammonia. And ammonia, if I remember my high school chemistry, is bad.
It's very bad news. It's incredibly toxic, especially to your nervous system. Your body has to neutralize it, and fast.
So how do we do it?
Well, mammals, we generally evolved in places with a pretty stable water supply. So we tackle the problem by converting that toxic ammonia into urea. This happens in the liver. Urea is way less toxic than ammonia, but it has one huge drawback.
It needs water?
A lot of water.
Yeah.
It's highly soluble. So you need a constant flush of liquid urine to get it out of your body safely without damaging your kidneys.
So we're basically trading high toxicity for a high water bill. We can afford to just flush it all out.
We can afford the flush, yes, both in terms of water and energy. The urea cycle is metabolically pretty expensive. Now switch gears and think about a reptile, maybe a desert lizard, or even an embryo developing inside a hard-shelled egg.
Okay, yeah. If you're in an egg, you can't just flush waste away. There's nowhere for it to go.
And if you're that desert lizard, every single drop of water is precious. The system that works for us would be a death sentence for them. They dehydrate in no time.
So that's the evolutionary pressure. They need it a different way.
A different way entirely. So instead of spending all that energy and water to make and flush urea, reptiles and birds convert their nitrogen waste into a different compound, uric acid.
The same stuff that gives us gout.
The very same. But for them, its key property is that it's barely soluble in water. It precipitates out of solution very, very easily.
So they're basically consolidating their waste, turning it from a liquid into a solid to save water. That's the evolutionary trick.
It's the ultimate water-saving hack. It's maybe one of the most elegant solutions in nature for this problem. So instead of liquid urine with dissolved urea, they produce these chalky white pellets or pastes. These are salts called uates.
And they just pass these solids out through the cloaca with almost no water loss?
Minimal water loss. It's all about survival. They took a chemical that for us means joint pain and kidney failure and made it the cornerstone of their survival in really harsh places.
And that gets us right back to the central paradox here. For humans, the fact that uric acid can crystallize is the problem.
But for reptiles, the fact that it will crystallize is the solution. They're dealing with concentrations of uric acid that would send any human straight to the emergency room, but they do it without any internal damage.
And it's not just that they make the crystals, it's that they do it safely, right, without the pain and inflammation. And that's exactly what puzzled the researchers like Dr. Jennifer Swift over at Georgetown University.
Absolutely. Her team was really motivated by this idea of translation. They figured if we can understand how reptiles are excreting this material so safely and at such a massive scale, that has to hold the key to preventing it in humans. They weren't just studying snakes because they're interesting.
No, they were looking for nature's blueprint for crystal management.
Exactly, a perfected blueprint.
So the big question becomes, is the difference chemical or is it structural? How did the team even begin to tackle that? I mean, to see the difference between a painful human kidney stone and a safe reptile crystal, you must need some incredible tools.
You do. The team used some really cutting-edge techniques.
Yeah.
We're talking way beyond a simple light microscope. They were using powerful tools, things like scanning electron microscopes, to analyze the precise geometry, the shape, and the chemical makeup of these reptile urates.
They looked at a lot of them.
A huge range,
Yeah.
over 20 different reptile species. And that comparative approach is so important because it tells you this isn't just a fluke in one lizard. It's a shared, successful strategy that evolution has conserved.
And the fact that this got published in the Journal of the American Chemical Society, that tells you this is serious stuff. This is about fundamental chemistry and material science.
It is.
So what did those powerful microscopes actually show? What was the big discovery about the structure of this stuff?
Well, this is really the aha moment of the whole study, the big breakthrough.
Right.
They confirmed all the species had these urates, but the physical structure was aight. It was completely different from what causes us pain. They were not seeing sharp, jagged, randomly formed crystals like you see in human gout or kidney stones.
They saw order.
Yeah.
Organization.
Organization is the perfect word. They found a very specific, highly organized geometry. It was especially striking in animals like pythons and Madagascan tree boas. The urates weren't just random chunks. They were made up of these uniformly sized spheres. The researchers called them microspheres.
Microspheres. Just the name sounds less aggressive than jagged crystal.
It does, doesn't it?
But if they're still made of uric acid, why are these spheres safe? What makes them different from the razor-sharp things that can tear up a person's kidney?
It really boils down to two things,
Yeah.
scale and geometry. Let's talk about scale first. These microspheres they're unbelievably small. The paper says they measured no more than 0.00004 of an inch across.
Okay, I have no frame of reference for that. How small is that?
Well, think of a single grain of fine table salt. That's about 0.000 inches. So these spheres are 20 times smaller than that. They're just minuscule. They're perfectly sized for safe passage out of the body without causing physical damage.
So that's the fundamental insight, isn't it? The structure and the scale. In humans, our bodies create these uncontrolled, large, often needle-like crystals that are like millions of tiny daggers.
Triggering immune responses, causing physical tearing, yes.
But in reptiles, they're creating thousands and thousands of these incredibly tiny, organized, smooth spheres.
That's the key differentiator. And it tells us their strategy isn't to stop crystallization. It's to control it. To control it at the most basic level to make sure the final structure is safe and easy to excrete.
But the architecture, it goes even deeper than just the microsphere itself, right?
Yeah.
What did they find when they looked at how those tiny spheres are actually built?
This is where it gets really brilliant. They use the term crystallization hierarchy. The microspheres themselves, they aren't solid single crystals. They are built up from even smaller building blocks. These tiny structures, the researchers called nanocrystals.
Nanocrystals, so crystals on the scale of nanometers.
A billionth of a meter, yes. So you have these tiny, tiny nanocrystals of water and uric acid. And they are meticulously assembled into these stable microspheres.
So it's like nature's building a big structure, but it's using the tiniest, smoothest Lego blocks imaginable.
That is a perfect analogy. And this layered hierarchical structure is what makes the whole system safe. The way the nanocrystals are arranged prevents them from clumping together into the big harmful crystals we see in human diseases. They stay as these individual, smooth, tiny spheres.
It's an incredible example of evolutionary nanotechnology. But the science didn't stop with the structure, did it? The research also found another key function for the uric acid itself.
It did. Remember we talked about that highly toxic ammonia?
Yeah, the byproduct of breaking down protein.
Right. So while we convert it all to urea, the researchers found that in reptiles, the uric acid in these urate structures is actually helping to turn any leftover ammonia into a safer, solid form. It gets locked away right inside the microspheres.
So the uric acid is also a detoxifier. It's not just packing up the waste, it's actively neutralizing the most dangerous part of it.
It connects the detoxification process directly to the waste management structure. It's an incredibly efficient dual-purpose system. The uric acid is the solution for saving water, and it's the vehicle for neutralizing toxins. The level of optimization is just astounding.
Okay, so this is where we have to make the pivot. To the medical side of things, we have this incredible observation about python waste. But how do we get from that chemical reality to something that actually helps a person suffering from gout?
Well, first we have to be really clear about what's going wrong in humans. The condition, hyperuricemia, too much uric acid, it's very common. It's often tied to diet, to genetics. And right now, most medical treatments try to do one of two things.
Lower the amount of uric acid your body makes.
Right, with drugs like allopurinol. Or they try to increase your body's ability to flush it out through the kidneys. But both of those approaches are targeting the quantity of the compound.
And what you're saying is this reptile research suggests we should be focused on the quality, the structure of the crystals, not just how much uric acid there is.
That is the radical shift. When our systems fail, the crystals build up, but they do it in a chaotic, uncontrolled, and jagged way.
And let's talk about the consequences of that. Why does the human body react so violently?
It's mostly an immune response.
Yeah.
In your joints, especially the big toe, those sharp needle-like crystals are called monosodium urate. They literally pierce the joint lining. The immune system sees them as foreign invaders.
An attack.
It launches a massive inflammatory attack. That's the searing, crippling pain of a gout flare-up. Your body is basically destroying its own tissue to fight these tiny internal daggers.
And in the kidneys, the problem is more mechanical.
Yes.
Yeah.
In the urinary tract, it leads to stones. These are big clumps of uric acid and other minerals, and they're large enough to block the tiny tubes and ducts in your kidneys. The pressure, the tearing, that's why kidney stones are just legendarily painful.
So the contrast couldn't be clearer. Humans make large, sharp, inflammatory crystals. Reptiles make tiny, smooth, non-inflammatory spheres.
And the treatment hypothesis flows right from that observation. If scientists can figure out the precise chemical trigger, maybe it's a specific protein or some molecular template that guides the formation of those nanocrystals and makes them form spheres.
Then we could potentially develop drugs to do the same thing in humans.
Potentially, yes. We could modulate our own uric acid crystallization. Instead of drugs to just stop the production, you'd manage the structure of the crystals that do form. It's a field called crystal habit modification.
So the innovation is, imagine a new kind of medication. It wouldn't necessarily lower your total uric acid level, but it would step in at the moment of crystallization and act like a chemical guide or a scaffold,
forcing the uric acid molecules to stack up in that safe spherical architecture that we see in reptiles.
We'd essentially be teaching our bodies to excrete uric acid like a python does. It's a completely novel approach.
And it's really compelling when you circle back to that other finding, the protective role of uric acid. Researchers have thought for a long time that uric acid might be protective in people too. It's not just waste. We know it's one of the most powerful natural antioxidants in our blood.
So it mops up free radicals, prevents cell damage.
Exactly. Which means that simply eliminating it entirely, which is the goal of a lot of current treatments, might be a case of throwing the baby out with the bathwater. We could be losing a vital protective chemical.
That's a really important point. If we could solve the structural problem, we might be able to keep the chemical benefits.
The reptile model suggests the uric acid itself is useful, as long as you manage its structure correctly. This research challenges our basic assumptions.
The potential here is huge. For someone with gout, instead of just managing flare-ups, they could take a daily structural modifier. Any excess uric acid just precipitates out harmlessly.
Or for kidney stones, it could mean you just stop forming those painful obstructive masses in the first place.
Okay, but we have to bring in some critical analysis here. This is a brilliant finding published in a top journal. But it's not a pill you can get at the pharmacy tomorrow. The jump from observing this in nature to making it work in human biology, that has to be huge.
Immense. And we have to be very clear about the limitations, which the researchers themselves point out. The first huge hurdle is, well, it's synthetic mimicry. The reptile system isn't just passively forming these spheres. There has to be some kind of biological template.
Like a protein or an enzyme.
Something. A molecule that acts as the starting point, the scaffold, that forces the uric acid nanocrystals to assemble into that specific spherical shape. The next big challenge is finding that molecular glue.
And until we can isolate that specific instruction, we can't hope to replicate it in a lab.
Precisely. And even if you do create a synthetic version that works in a petri dish, the second limitation is delivery. How do you get it to work inside the human body?
Right. You need this to work in very specific, very different places. Inside a joint capsule, which is full of thick fluid, or deep inside the tiny filtered tubules of a kidney.
How do you get a drug to those specific spots without it being filtered out or causing side effects elsewhere? The human kidney is an incredibly efficient filter, which is great for us, but it makes it very hard to get a drug to the right place at the right concentration.
And there's a safety question, too. We know that high uric acid is linked with other things, like cardiovascular disease. We don't fully understand that link yet. So is it risky to say we should keep high uric acid levels even if we make the crystals safe?
That's the crucial open question. The reptile model is all about excretion safety. It doesn't automatically mean high levels of uric acid are harmless in our bloodstream long-term, even if we control the crystals. So we need more work to be sure.
So to be clear, we have the inspiration. We know that controlled, organized crystallization is biologically possible, but we don't have a ready-made cure.
Not yet. This finding is a platform. It's a guide that will direct chemists and biologists for years to come. It shifts the focus away from just suppressive drugs and toward material science and synthetic templates. It's a fundamental change in the goal of the therapy.
All right, let's just synthesize this one more time for everyone listening. Why should someone who isn't a chemist or a zoologist care about how a python crystallizes its waste?
Because it's a perfect demonstration of the power of looking to nature for answers. We're talking about two incredibly common, debilitating human problems, gout and kidney stones, that come from the same chemical failure, the chaotic crystallization of uric acid.
And this research shows that nature already solved this problem millions of years ago.
Under extreme pressure, it evolved a precise microscopic structural solution. And that structure, the tiny scaly organization, that's the key difference between efficient survival for a reptile and painful disease for a human. It redirects the entire therapeutic conversation toward nanotechnology and structural management.
It's a pretty humbling reminder that some of the biggest challenges in human medicine have already been solved, often in the most surprising places.
It really is.
This research opens the door to a really innovative way of thinking. Instead of just fighting uric acid, we might one day manage it, letting our bodies keep its protective benefits while getting rid of its destructive physical properties.
And for you, the learner, we'd encourage you to maybe look up some resources on hyperuricemia. See how common gout and kidney stones are around the world. Understanding the sheer scale of the problem really underscores how valuable this blueprint from a snake could be.
As we wrap up this deep dive, I think the final takeaway is that structure dictates function, all the way down to the molecular level. This research gives scientists a real, tangible goal. Make our internal uric acid behave more like a reptile's. Prioritize tiny, safe spheres over large, sharp stones. It's a fascinating look at how the secrets to our future health might be buried deep in our evolutionary past.
It certainly proves that if you look closely enough at nature's solutions, you might just find the architectural plan to solve one of our oldest and most painful chemical puzzles.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the surprising world of reptilian crystal chemistry.
Thanks for tuning in to the Health Headliner podcast by To-Do Digital. Like and subscribe for more health news and breakthroughs. Stay healthy and informed. See you next time.